If you are hearing these words right now, pause for a moment. Not because something magical has forced this message into your life, but because something within you was ready to receive it. Meaning does not arrive randomly. It appears when the inner world reaches a certain threshold of awareness. You did not stumble upon this message by accident. You encountered it because a part of you has been quietly searching for confirmation, clarity, or release. A sign is not an external command telling you what to do. It is an inner recognition that says, "This speaks to me." When something resonates deeply, it touches layers of the psyche that logic cannot reach. The unconscious communicates through symbols, patterns, and moments of recognition. Seeing this message may simply reflect that an inner process is already unfolding within you. Often, when life feels confusing or stagnant, the psyche begins to rearrange itself. Old beliefs weaken, former identities feel heavy. You may sense restlessness, emotional intensity, or a quiet dissatisfaction you cannot fully explain. This is not a failure, it is a signal of transformation. Before clarity emerges, the mind must pass through uncertainty. Before alignment is felt, disintegration must occur. Signs do not always announce new beginnings. Sometimes they reveal what must be released. Patterns repeat until they are understood. Emotions surface, not to punish you, but to be integrated. What you resist persists. What you face transforms. The appearance of meaning in your life suggests that you are no longer asleep to your inner movements. You are not meant to become someone else. You are meant to become whole. Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means honesty with your inner contradictions. Light grows stronger when it no longer denies the shadow. When you stop seeking validation outside and begin listening inward, guidance becomes quieter but clearer. If this message feels like a sign, let it be one, not of destiny controlling you, but of awareness awakening within you. The path ahead does not require force. It requires attention. Trust that the psyche knows how to guide itself when you allow space for reflection, courage for self-confrontation, and patience for inner growth. This is not the moment you change everything. This is the moment you recognize that change has already begun. Meaningful encounters are often dismissed as coincidence, yet they tend to arise at moments when something within us is already shifting. When inner awareness reaches a certain depth, perception changes. We begin to notice patterns, symbols, and moments of resonance that were always present but previously ignored. It is not that life suddenly becomes meaningful. It is that the mind becomes receptive to meaning. Awareness acts like a lens, bringing certain experiences into focus precisely when they are needed for psychological growth. When a person is internally closed, even the most profound message passes unnoticed. Advice sounds empty. Opportunities feel irrelevant, and encounters seem ordinary. But when awareness begins to awaken, the same events carry a different weight. A sentence overheard, a stranger's words, a book opened at the right page. These moments feel charged because they connect with something already alive inside the psyche. The encounter does not create the transformation, it reflects it. Inner readiness invites outer recognition. This readiness often develops quietly. Long before conscious understanding appears, the unconscious is working. It loosens old attachments, questions rigid beliefs, and stirs emotions that seem to arise without reason. During this phase, people often experience restlessness, emotional sensitivity, or a sense that something is off without knowing why. These are signs of internal reorganization. Meaningful encounters emerge during such periods because the psyche is actively seeking orientation, even if the conscious mind is not yet aware of it. What makes an encounter meaningful is not the event itself, but the response it evokes. Two people can witness the same moment, yet only one experiences it as significant. Meaning arises when inner questions meet outer symbols. The psyche recognizes itself in what it encounters. This recognition feels personal, intimate, and undeniable, as if life briefly speaks a language only you can hear. Such moments do not impose direction, they confirm an inner movement already underway. These encounters also challenge the illusion of control. The mind likes to believe that growth happens through deliberate planning, but psychological development often unfolds indirectly. Awareness ripens through experience, reflection, and even suffering. When the inner world reaches a point of readiness, life seems to respond. Not because the world is arranged for us, but because we are finally able to see what aligns with our inner state. Importantly, meaningful encounters do not always feel comforting. Some arrive as disruptions, confrontations, or emotional shocks. They expose what has been avoided and illuminate what can no longer remain unconscious. Their purpose is not reassurance, but integration. When awareness is ready, truth appears in forms that demand attention, honesty, and responsibility. Over time, recognizing this pattern builds trust in the inner process. One learns that life does not need to be forced into meaning. When awareness deepens, meaning reveals itself naturally. Encounters stop being random events and become mirrors of inner development, guiding not through instruction, but through recognition. A sign is often misunderstood as an external directive, something that arrives from outside and tells a person exactly what to do or how to act. This interpretation places authority in the outer world and reduces the individual to a passive receiver of instructions. In reality, a sign holds no power unless something within responds to it. Its significance does not come from the event itself, but from the inner resonance it awakens. Without that resonance, the same event would pass unnoticed, stripped of meaning. Inner resonance is subtle. It is not loud or forceful, nor does it demand immediate action. It appears as a quiet recognition, a feeling that something has touched an internal truth. This response cannot be manufactured or logically explained. It arises spontaneously from deeper layers of the psyche. A phrase, image, or moment feels familiar in an unexplainable way, as if it echoes something long present but unspoken. This echo is what transforms an ordinary occurrence into a sign. When signs are treated as commands, people often surrender responsibility for their inner life. They wait for instructions, interpret events rigidly, and become dependent on external validation. This approach weakens self-trust and distorts the purpose of meaning. A true sign does not remove choice, it invites awareness. It does not tell you what to become, it reveals what is already emerging within you. The power remains internal, not external. The psyche communicates through symbols, because symbols allow meaning without force. Unlike commands, symbols invite reflection. They open questions instead of closing them. An inner resonance creates space for contemplation, allowing the individual to engage with the message at their own pace. This process respects psychological autonomy and encourages integration rather than obedience. Often, people search obsessively for signs during periods of uncertainty. This urgency usually reflects fear rather than readiness. When inner awareness is undeveloped or fragmented, signs are interpreted anxiously, as if missing one would lead to loss or failure. But when awareness is grounded, signs are not hunted, they are recognized naturally. They appear effortlessly because the mind is calm enough to perceive subtle connections. Inner resonance also carries emotional truth. It may bring relief, discomfort, curiosity, or even resistance. These reactions are valuable because they reveal what is alive within the psyche. A sign that provokes discomfort often points toward neglected aspects of the self. Rather than offering direction, it offers insight. Growth begins not with certainty, but with honest engagement with what arises. Understanding a sign as inner resonance restores balance between the inner and outer worlds. Life continues to present countless events, but meaning emerges only where awareness meets experience. The sign does not lead, it reflects. It confirms that something within you is ready to be seen, felt, or integrated. In this way, signs are not messages imposed from outside, but quiet affirmations of an inner process already in motion. Confusion and discomfort are usually interpreted as signs that something has gone wrong, yet they often emerge when the psyche is undergoing genuine transformation. When old structures of identity begin to loosen, clarity temporarily dissolves. The mind no longer relies on familiar narratives, but new ones have not yet formed. This in-between state feels unstable, disorienting, and uncomfortable, not because growth is failing, but because it is actively occurring. Psychological transformation requires the breakdown of outdated patterns. Beliefs that once provided certainty begin to lose their authority. Emotional reactions that were previously automatic no longer feel aligned. This creates inner friction. Confusion arises because the psyche is reorganizing itself, questioning assumptions that were once unquestioned. Discomfort follows because the ego resists this loss of control. What feels like chaos is often the psyche clearing space for a more authentic orientation. During these periods, people frequently attempt to restore comfort as quickly as possible. They seek distraction, rigid explanations, or external reassurance. While understandable, this impulse often interrupts the transformative process. Discomfort is not an enemy to be eliminated, it is information. It signals that unconscious material is surfacing, asking to be acknowledged rather than suppressed. Avoidance may bring temporary relief, but it delays integration. Confusion also challenges identity. When transformation begins, the question, "Who am I?" quietly replaces, "Who have I been?" The absence of a clear answer can feel threatening. Old roles no longer fit, yet new expressions of self remain undefined. This uncertainty can create anxiety, self-doubt, and emotional sensitivity. However, this fragile state is precisely where deeper self-understanding can emerge. The psyche cannot reorganize without first destabilizing what no longer serves it. Discomfort often intensifies when shadow aspects come into awareness. Traits, desires, or fears that were previously denied seek expression. Encountering these elements can feel unsettling because they contradict the image one has maintained of oneself. Yet integrating these aspects is essential for wholeness. Psychological growth does not occur through constant positivity, but through honest engagement with inner complexity. Transformation is rarely dramatic in appearance. It unfolds quietly through internal tension, emotional fluctuations, and periods of feeling lost. These experiences do not announce progress, yet they are its evidence. When comfort is disrupted, consciousness expands. When certainty collapses, insight becomes possible. The psyche learns not by remaining stable but by adapting. Over time, those who allow confusion and discomfort to be present develop greater psychological resilience. They become less dependent on rigid answers and more tolerant of ambiguity. This flexibility allows for deeper insight and self-trust. Clarity eventually returns, but it is different from before. It is less defensive, less absolute, and more grounded in lived understanding. Confusion and discomfort are not detours from growth, they are its indicators. They mark the moments when the psyche is actively shedding old limitations and preparing for integration. When endured with awareness rather than resistance, they become gateways through which transformation naturally unfolds. Repeating patterns in life often feel frustrating, as if one is trapped in the same situations, emotions, or relationships despite conscious efforts to change. These recurrences are commonly interpreted as bad luck or personal failure, yet they serve a deeper psychological function. Patterns repeat not to punish but to reveal. When something returns again and again, it signals that an underlying issue remains unresolved. Avoidance may alter the surface of the experience, but it cannot dissolve its source. The psyche seeks wholeness, and anything excluded from awareness tends to return in disguised forms. A person may leave a relationship dynamic only to encounter the same emotional conflict elsewhere. One may change careers but experience the same dissatisfaction. These repetitions are not coincidences. They reflect internal themes seeking recognition. Until their meaning is understood, the psyche has no reason to stop presenting them. Avoidance often appears as progress. Changing environments, people, or behaviors can create the illusion of movement, yet the internal structure remains unchanged. What is not integrated simply adapts. The unconscious is patient and persistent. It does not demand attention through force, but through repetition. Each return offers another opportunity to observe, reflect, and understand what is being communicated beneath the surface. Understanding a pattern requires honesty rather than judgment. The tendency is to label recurring experiences as mistakes, yet they are expressions of unmet needs, unresolved conflicts, or disowned aspects of the self. Integration begins when curiosity replaces resistance. Instead of asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" the more useful question becomes, "What part of me is being revealed through this?" This shift opens the door to insight. Integration does not mean eliminating the pattern, but transforming one's relationship to it. When awareness deepens, the emotional charge weakens. The pattern loses its compulsive grip because its message has been received. What was once automatic becomes conscious. This awareness restores choice. The individual is no longer driven by unseen forces, but guided by understanding. Repeating patterns often carry emotional intensity because they touch foundational layers of identity. They may involve themes of abandonment, control, worth, or belonging. These themes originate early and shape perception, long before conscious awareness develops. When they resurface, they do so with urgency, not to overwhelm, but to be integrated into a more complete sense of self. True change does not occur through forceful rejection of patterns, but through patient engagement with them. When the lesson embedded in repetition is absorbed, the psyche naturally moves forward. The pattern dissolves not because it was fought, but because it was understood. In this way, repetition becomes a guide rather than an obstacle, pointing steadily toward psychological integration and inner coherence. Wholeness is often mistaken for purity, perfection, or constant positivity, yet true psychological wholeness emerges from a far more honest process. It requires the acceptance of both light and shadow within the self. The light represents qualities we easily claim: strength, kindness, intelligence, virtue, while the shadow contains traits we reject, deny, or suppress. These disowned aspects do not disappear. They retreat into the unconscious, where they continue to influence thoughts, emotions, and behavior without awareness. The shadow forms early, shaped by social expectations, moral conditioning, and the need for belonging. Traits that are judged unacceptable are pushed away to preserve approval and identity. Over time, this creates a divided inner world. The consci, our self, clings to a narrow image of who it believes it should be, while the shadow holds impulses, emotions, and potentials that contradict that image. This split weakens psychological integrity and creates inner tension. Rejecting the shadow does not make a person more virtuous, it makes them less aware. What is denied internally is often projected outward. Qualities one cannot tolerate in oneself are perceived and judged harshly in others. This projection distorts relationships and reinforces inner conflict. The shadow demands recognition, and when ignored, it finds indirect ways to express itself through emotional reactions, compulsive behaviors, or self-sabotage. Accepting the shadow does not mean acting out destructive impulses or abandoning moral responsibility. It means acknowledging the full range of one's inner reality without judgment. Awareness transforms shadow material by bringing it into conscious dialogue. When the shadow is seen clearly, it loses its power to unconsciously control behavior. What was once feared becomes understood, and what was once hidden becomes integrated. Light and shadow are not opposites fighting for dominance. They are complementary aspects of the same psyche. Compassion deepens when one recognizes their own capacity for anger. Wisdom grows when one accepts uncertainty and vulnerability. Strength becomes authentic when it includes sensitivity. Wholeness emerges not from eliminating darkness, but from allowing it to inform and balance the light. This integration process requires courage, as it challenges idealized self-images. It demands honesty in moments when self-justification would be easier. Yet the reward is psychological freedom. When the inner world is no longer divided, energy previously used for repression becomes available for creativity, clarity, and growth. The individual becomes less reactive and more grounded. Wholeness is not a fixed state achieved once and for all. It is an ongoing relationship with the self, renewed through awareness and reflection. By embracing both light and shadow, one lives with greater authenticity, depth, and inner coherence. This acceptance does not weaken character, it strengthens it, allowing the self to exist as a complete, integrated whole. True guidance is often sought in the outer world, through approval, opinions, signs, and reassurance from others. While external feedback can offer perspective, it cannot provide lasting direction. When guidance depends on validation from outside, the individual becomes fragmented, constantly adjusting their inner compass to meet external expectations. Genuine direction does not arise from being confirmed by others, it emerges from sustained inner attention. Inner attention is the capacity to observe one's thoughts, emotions, impulses, and reactions without immediately acting upon them or judging them. It requires stillness and patience, qualities that are difficult to maintain in a world driven by comparison and noise. Yet without this inward focus, choices are made reactively, guided by fear of rejection or desire for approval rather than authentic understanding. External validation offers temporary comfort because it quiets uncertainty. Praise, agreement, and recognition momentarily relieve doubt, but they also weaken self-trust. When validation becomes the primary guide, the individual loses contact with their own values and instincts. Decisions begin to feel hollow, even when they are socially rewarded. This inner emptiness is often the first signal that guidance has been outsourced. Inner attention develops through reflection rather than reaction. It involves noticing recurring emotional patterns, understanding personal motivations, and recognizing where resistance or excitement arises. These signals provide far more accurate guidance than external opinions because they are rooted in lived experience. When attention turns inward, clarity unfolds gradually, not as certainty but as alignment. This process requires tolerating ambiguity. Unlike external validation, which offers quick answers, inner guidance unfolds slowly. It demands that one remain present with uncertainty rather than escaping it. Over time, this patience builds psychological maturity. One learns to distinguish between fear-driven impulses and authentic inclinations. Choices become quieter but more grounded. When inner attention is cultivated, the influence of external voices changes. Opinions are no longer directives but references. Feedback can be received without surrendering authority. Disagreement no longer feels like a threat to identity. This independence fosters resilience and integrity. The individual becomes guided by coherence rather than approval. True guidance does not eliminate doubt or difficulty. It does not promise safety or certainty. Instead, it provides a sense of internal consistency. Actions feel aligned even when outcomes are uncertain. This alignment creates a form of confidence that does not require constant reinforcement. Living from inner attention restores trust in